Well, it's raining, I'm coming down with a cold, and yet here I am to discuss book 5 in my 2015 reading challenge. I say discuss, not really discussing. If you want to discuss, there's always the comment section. I'm happy to discuss. This week's book, Ack Ack Macaque by Gareth Powell. I've read it described as a cyber pulp, and I would agree. It's very pulpy. It's a good old-fashioned rip-roaring adventure yarn with some deeper sort of science fictional underpinnings. It looks like it's going to be like a pulpy historical type novel interspersed with a sort of more modern storyline set in an alternate timeline future. So in this future, France and England have allied against the Germans and have sort of formed one country, and the sky is full of these nuclear powered dirigibles. It has a little bit of the whole steampunk vibe about it, but it's been science fictionalized. But this is not what it is. I'm not going to give it away because I have promised none of these will be spoilerish, but as a matter of fact, the whole book is science fictional. At the centre of this book is sort of like an intrigue, a scheme involving a lab called Celestine, named after Celestine, who is the Queen. And Celestine's son, Merivech, the Prince of Wales, he's also deeply involved with this. But again, I'm not going to tell you why. You can tell I'm really enjoying, in a kind of cruel fashion, not making spoilery videos. You'd probably be right. But I hate when there's a review of a book that gives everything away and you're kind of like, well, I can read it now, but I know exactly what happens, sort of. So what's the point? I just want to intrigue people enough that they'll pick up the book and read it and find out for themselves. We enter into the story with a character called Victoria Valois. Her ex-husband has been murdered, and let's just say cyber ghosts come into it, which is quite cool. But the only reason why cyber ghosts can come into it is because of the cyberpunky sort of side of things. This is the cyber part of the cyber pulp, and this whole thing involving cyborg brains, as it were, plastide brains. This is how the lab Celeste is sort of at the centre of everything, because they're the ones who have been doing research into these plastide brains. There's a lot of interesting subtext in this about what makes a human being human. Victoria, she's had half her brain replaced with these plastides with software in them after a helicopter accident, which she was surprisingly in with Merivech, the Prince of Wales. There's a lot of interconnecting strands in this book, which I like. I like books where everything connects into everything else. It's been very solidly constructed in that sense, and it's a lot of fun. But like I said, it has these interesting philosophical underpinnings about what essentially drives our personhood, our selfhood, and our sentience. I mean, I have a tiny few niggles about it. First off, that Ack Ack Macaque never seems to wash. Macaques are extremely clean. And so every time I read that he stank or they were staying downwind from him or anything, I was just like, why is he not cleaning? Because although I can't go into too much because it would spoil a lot, he's a sentient monkey. He's been made sentient by the introduction of these plastides, so he's essentially a cyborg monkey. Like Victoria Valois is a sort of part cyborg herself. And this is what I mean about there being more than one non-human character, not because Victoria Valois is non-human, but because there's also a full cyborg in the book who's walking around looking like a human. Not going to give that character away at all, because that's quite a neat reveal. There's a couple of other neat little reveals about people who are not entirely human-ish anymore, in the sense that a lot of their brain's been replaced with plastides, but I don't want to give that away either. But I felt that Ack Ack, as well as being sentient, would have some of his instincts rise up and he would want to be clean. It niggled at me. Maybe he's depressed, but the tiny little niggle. I don't know whether it's a reading problem. I do have those. And there are about 3 or 4 incidences in the book where I thought something had been explicitly explained as to having happened, but then a few chapters later it repeats the whole thing again in a different way, as though it's never been said before. One example, Victoria lives on one of these nuclear powered dirigibles, and the captain of the dirigible is her godfather, and he offers her a position aboard the dirigible. And I thought at that point when he offered her the job that she'd taken it. But a couple of chapters later, he goes through the whole thing of offering her the job again and she accepts it. And I'm like, hold on, didn't you already do that? I don't know whether that was something that's been used on purpose or whether it's just the first time those things were mentioned, they were not mentioned explicitly but implied, and I've taken them to be explicit because I'm terribly literal. But at least 4 times in the book where I read something and understood it to have happened, and then a few chapters later it was like, oh no, it hasn't, it's going to happen now. I'm like, okay. They didn't spoil the book for me, they just caused momentary pauses in the reading. And I read this book very fast. It's a terrific ripping yarn. Very, very, very well written. Good fun. Really enjoyed the complex, interesting plot. Really enjoyed the sort of underlying philosophical questioning. Just great. I really would like to read the next 2. They will be figured into my reading list as soon as I can. I'm hoping that Ack Ack is developed more during those. I think he will, because he wasn't in this one a terrible amount, considering it's called Ack Ack Macaque. It really focused on the mystery around the Celeste lab. And that's good, because we needed those storylines fulfilled. Ack Ack's wasn't necessarily a storyline in the sense that his mystery needed to be explained, because when we discover what he is and why he is, his mystery in the book is essentially explained, and all he's looking for is a little bit of recompense for it. I think in the next book we might see more of him developing as a character, which I think would be great, because he is a character, and I hope he washes. Because if I read the whole trilogy and he's still stinky by the end of it, then I will definitely have a bone to pick. And one other thing, which has nothing to do with the author, why is the animal on the front of this book a chimpanzee? Can anyone explain this to me? This does not look anything like a macaque. But the book definitely has a macaque in it. It's definitely a good book. Great science fictional ideas, terrific characters. Go ahead and read it. There, I hope that was shorter. I'm really not good at keeping these short, am I? How long have I been waffling on for? Ages. The next book in the challenge, book 6, was Ancillary Justice. Can I just take a note here to say how I'm supposed to be kind of leaning away from the science fictional genre? And I've just stacked up a whole load of them. Reading The Peripheral and Hollow Space and Ack Ack Macaque and Ancillary Justice. And I'm just, I'm just going on with it, because I've got a couple of non-science fiction books, but then I'm back to science fiction and fantasy after that. Because someone just come along and slap me and say, stop it! Stop reading! And I can't, and I refuse to. Next time, I am going to talk to you about this book, which is amazing. Not going to lie. So, tune in next time, if I've managed to make this video shorter, and watch me waffle on about this one for less than 10 minutes. It's going to be, I promise, cross Ancillary Justice's heart. Bye-bye.